Promote a culture of inclusion, supercharge your communication, and unleash the full potential of your teams and leaders with the Inclusive Handbook collection from the Diversity Movement. As part of the collection, I wrote the Inclusive Leadership Handbook with Kurt Merriweather to empower leaders with tools needed to cultivate a culture that fosters creativity, innovation, and employee engagement. Through strategies, exercises, and self-reflection, leaders at all levels can enhance their effectiveness. Learn more at thediversitymovement.com/store. Use code HOL at checkout for 25% of your first order. Welcome to High Octane Leadership with Donald Thompson. This season, we're diving deeper with more solo episodes, where I'll share the experiences that have led to recognition by EY, Forbes, Fast Company, and others. Not as a boast, but as milestones on my entrepreneurial path. From growing multi-million-dollar firms to successful business exits and building high-performance teams with a global perspective. I'll reveal the insights and strategies from my journey and share them with you so that we can win together. Alongside these solo episodes, we'll have industry visionaries and thought leaders, and we'll explore effective leadership. Ready to empower your leadership journey with real success stories? Let's embark on this transformational journey together. Welcome to another edition of High Octane Leadership. I have today a good friend of mine. We've done several podcasts together, Mr. Bob Batchelor. Bob, welcome back, man.
Thanks, Don. Happy to be here. As always, I get to go from, I'm upgraded today. I'm usually sidekick, sometimes just silent sidekick. Now I get to actually be a guest again. So super excited.
Absolutely. And one of the things for our audience is Bob and I have been friends for a number of years, partners for a number of years, and we're testing message on some of the things we feel really strongly about in marketing, in leadership, in building strong organizations. And one of the things that we brainstormed a little bit is the topic of thought leadership, executive branding in terms of driving business value for an organization. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And what I'll do is kick it off with a question to Bob. Anytime you're using new terms or even terms people have heard of, defining those terms is super important to have a healthy and robust dialogue. So for you, Bob, in your experience, 20, 25 years in executive branding, global communication for individuals, large firms, define for us what thought leadership is.
Thought leadership is a great topic. It's big, and I define it very simply as brand you. So for an executive, what is it that you bring to the game that is different than other people, that demonstrates you as a thought leader, demonstrates you as a self-aware individual, and demonstrates you as a lifelong learner? And if you were telling your parents or your loved ones, hey, here's what I do at work each day, and here's why it moves the needle for society, for your community, for families, for your employees, here's what it is. That's thought leadership to me.
One of the things in your definition that I wholeheartedly agree with and I'm excited about, and I've seen this through your guidance and mentorship over the years really help me, is you have to be aware that we are in a celebrity-driven economy, right? Like you can't be naive, right? The president of the United States is a former reality TV star. You can like Trump, hate Trump, love what he's doing, hate what he's doing. That's not the point of this all along. But name recognition, reputation, credibility that you bring to a conversation before you even get there accelerates your ability to do business in a positive way. And so as an executive and a business leader, one of the things I had to think about, work on, and really understand is how to invest in that. Why it was important amongst all the other things I was doing, right? To think about executive branding, to think about thought leadership. So Bob, my next question, and I got full of comments, but I'm super curious. And so anytime I get time with you, I have questions. How do you explain to an executive, not that thought leadership matters, not that executive branding is good, but that return on investment is a worthwhile portion out of their very hectic schedule to commit to work on, to invest in?
Well, again, I don't want this to sound like I have a lot of easy answers, but I've just been thinking about this for decades. And one of the things, I mean, it's like it's all pent up, and now finally people want to talk about it. So, why? Because you want to define you and your organization before somebody else does. That's the number one reason. And I think, and let's use you particularly as a test case, what you did and what you and I created together was something that was manageable for you and I to do. I didn't come into your office one day and say, I can get you on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, because that, my friend, is ludicrous. We were doing great things, but we're not doing front page of the Wall Street Journal. But could we maximize your column in TechWire? Could we get you higher, more prestigious speaking engagements? Could we refine the things that you were saying around several very key points that would drive the conversation forward and drive the business forward? So, in 6 months to a year, could we be in a position with your brand, very specifically the Don Thompson brand, that tells the TDM story in a way that's understandable, that people want to engage with, and is intensely authentic?
The last phrase I think is really important of all the things that you said is being intensely authentic. A lot of times business leaders, when they think about thought leadership, executive branding, they can get their head around the why. But then what is involved in them finding their voice to a broader audience? Because most leaders haven't done that. They achieved because they were great in sales. They were a rock star engineer. They founded a company, right? Most executives, whether they go to Harvard or they go to community college, didn't master in personal branding, right? So it's a new area to most people. So one of the things that I describe to leaders when I talk about this topic is being yourself is the magic. We're just trying to amplify the best parts of you as a part of your communication strategy. We're not asking you to be different, talk different necessarily. We're trying to give you the opportunity to say in concise formats, social media, podcast, TV interviews, why someone should listen to you, why you can be helpful to the person that's listening to you, and what is the opportunity of growth by using the knowledge that you share with them to help them have a better life, better business, better goal orientation. And when you explain it in those simple things, now all of a sudden you can have a conversation with an executive. What are you really good at? Let's talk about this. What information and learning have you developed over the years that you wish somebody had shared with you that would have helped you get there faster? So when I'm talking to business leaders, I don't make it some complex thing that's hard for them to get their head around. I really tailor a thought leadership practice or exercise around the things they're already doing in their everyday life. But now we just want to help build an audience that hears it more for them.
Yeah, an executive probably isn't going to respond that well if you say, well, we live in a pop culture society and we are celebrity obsessed and you need to become a celebrity. That feels daunting to people. But if you say, what is it about your personality? What is it that drives you? What is it that keeps you up at night? What keeps you working at 2 a.m. when you should have been in bed at midnight? What are these things that make you and make your organization different and make a difference in your community? Then it makes sense, because you're not asking anybody to do something that feels really sticky to them. You're asking them to do things that tell the story, because the story is important. And the fact that executives haven't majored in storytelling and narrative is the problem of business schools, because business schools should be teaching this. Narrative and storytelling is the entire ballgame. And if the problem is that business schools haven't caught up, it's not the fact that we haven't caught up. We know it's narrative. You have to tell the story. And you don't have to make it all about you. I had a CEO tell me about a month ago, $300 million company, I don't want to do this. I don't want the focus to be on me. So you don't have to have the focus on you. You have to tell the story of the organization. You don't have to thump your chest for 1 second about what you've done. Tell me and tell the world why your organization matters. And that's authentic. Because I'm not asking you to lie. I'm not asking you to embellish. I'm not asking you to do any of those things that celebrities get in trouble for doing. I'm not asking you to don't lie on your resume. Don't do something ridiculous. Be authentic. Tell that story. And it's because that's what audience want. We're in our deep in our DNA, we're storytelling animals. We exist on stories. It's the first thing you ask somebody or the first thing you think. You meet somebody new, you either think or ask, what's your story? Or you try to ask them questions to get that out of them because that's what we love. We love stories. It's like we live in that VH1 rock star show where it's like the rise, the fall, the rise again. We all love
Absolutely.
it.
It's, and to your point, right? As humans, right? We want to know the backstory. Why are documentaries so powerful? We want to know, can we be that guy? That's why all these action movies are so big, right? Like it's all about the story. And here's the thing that aligns with business stories, and that's data. CEOs don't want to be left behind on things that are working. So, as I was doing my research for this podcast, I intuitively knew this was a good thing for me to do. I listen to experts, Bob, like yourself, but others don't do things necessarily on gut feel, like maybe I do sometimes. They need to understand that Edelman in the trust barometer said 76% of executives say that thought leadership positively drives their company's reputation. That Content Marketing Institute, 84% of B2B buyers are influenced by thought leadership when making a purchasing decision. When you're looking at HubSpot, for example, that's in the CRM space and all the different things, 55% more website traffic for companies that produce regular and consistent quality thought leadership. Those are things that say to the data driven executive, listen, if you don't hear a thing that Bob and Don are talking about, these numbers say you should stay tuned in, because nobody wants to work harder than they have to for credibility and for commercial viability in the new economy. And with all the things that are happening with SEO being less relevant, with AI and machine learning taking relevance in terms of how people are down selected, how do you cut through the noise as a leader? Sharing your expertise in an authentic way will absolutely help you get there.
Yeah, and we've switched roles because usually it's my job to bring those data points to you and have you comment on them. So we've totally switched roles. I didn't do any homework for this today at all because it's been a couple weeks in executive planning meeting after executive planning meeting. I haven't had time, but I'm so dedicated. I appreciate you bringing those statistics to light because they're all true. If you think back and look, I know you and I both have a deep appreciation for history and heritage, and not everybody does. But I'll tell you a little story. You probably remember, we're of the right age. A long time ago, beginning of the internet ish, Bill Gates wrote a book. And I wish that I had my copy because I kept one around for years. 3 months, 6 months, a year after he wrote that book, people were chastising him. He made a couple big predictions, didn't look like it was going to come true. But having the book, this is long before anybody was thinking about content marketing or thought leadership. He put it down on paper and he put it out, and a lot of people bought it, and even more people talked about it. And so when Microsoft wanted to make the transition to become an internet based company, they had already had a pre made packaging of what the story was going to be. So Bill Gates, in that moment, elevated himself to thought leader, an expert commentator, even above and beyond of the creator of Microsoft, the founder of Microsoft. He put a jetpack on his back and took off. And now Bill Gates is considered an icon. Guys like he's not Gandhi, but he's an icon. Nobody in the you go anywhere, Bill Gates. Yep, they know who he is. Maybe they don't all love him, but they know who he is. And you don't have to do that if you're a thought leader and you're uncomfortable with the public stage. But what's your audience? Maybe your audience is just your employees. Maybe you want to energize them. Maybe it's your local community. Maybe it's the philanthropic avenue that you're really interested in. Pick what interests you and what's authentic to you. Make that your superhero power. Push yourself in that direction. Do it in a way that's authentic, and nobody's gonna chastise you for that.
Bob, I really appreciate the point you made, and I want to expand on it a little bit about thought leadership and its impact on your employees. One of the things that executives miss, I think, is everybody's down with improving brand, understanding the halo effect for partners and buyers, and this is a motivating thing with thought leadership, right? And why marketers and PR firms encourage executives to do it. The internal marketing uplift, because what do you want to increase employee engagement is building trust. What do you want to improve employee engagement? Building better communication. So if you are a thought leadership expert in your field, and you're sharing it, your employees are more proud of who they work with and for. And when you work with somebody that you're proud of, that's leading the industry, that's building an organization where culture and strategy are combined together, that employee well-being is not an afterthought, it's a part of the strategic way that the company makes money and grows and innovates. Now all of a sudden you can see that crescendo, right, of employee goodwill to the leader. And that's something that locks teams together. Right. If you think about a sports analogy, and I've been spending a lot of time with folks around Carolina football lately. My dad used to coach there, and one of his star players, Julius Peppers, was inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame a few months ago. And this past week, we were in Vegas. He was inducted into the National College Hall of Fame. And so I've just been following my dad around, taking pictures, going to these cool events. But Bill Belichick is now the new coach at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill for football. Well, Bill Belichick has a pretty strong personal brand around winning. You can like him, hate him, cheer for him, cheer against him, but no one can refute that he has expertise in building and growing talent on the football field. My dad, when I'm walking through these things, he's 71 years old, and I'm seeing people from all over the country come and talk to him and asking him questions, because there was a period of time in my dad's career where he coached 4 number 1 draft picks in a row. As far as defensive line and defensive specialty, he was an absolute expert. And here's the thing: people want to be associated with, they want to be a part of the team with, they want to learn from experts. And so, to the degree that you position yourself there, that's one. And then number two, they want to work with experts that are willing to share their knowledge, that are willing to give knowledge to the benefit of other people. And so, to the degree that you can put those things together, right, now all of a sudden you can create a thought leadership engine that may not be at the NFL Belichick level. It may not be at the Bob Batchelor level, who's authored 15 books. It can be at your level as a CEO of a small, medium-sized business, or an enterprising executive in $1 billion business, so that you have the halo effect that works for you, that makes your sales velocity faster, your credibility inside the organization faster, and creates an environment where people want to be on your team. And I think that's a cool reason to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, and the listeners don't know this, but I taught at the university level for 16 years before. So as a corporate communications executive, got burnt out during the dot-com boom and the years after, went into teaching, did that for 16 years, and then jumped back in on the diversity movement team Avengers. And I used my classroom as kind of a working laboratory. And so we worked a lot on building their brands. And so I've had hundreds and hundreds of case studies on how people can build brands. And I broke it down into microcosms. And I would tell my best 5 to 10% of students over the course of my career and of teaching thousands and thousands of students. Most of them now are running their own shops. They're senior level executives, and they can chart back to the things that we did when they were juniors and seniors to get them to that place, because the people in the top 5 to 10%, those students, they listened. They recognized what I could bring to them. They listened. So I know this works because I've seen it done with 20-year-olds who are now 40-year-olds who are kicking it. They are absolutely killing it in their careers. They achieved their dreams. So you can imagine that. I helped these people achieve their dreams, and all they had to do was show their authentic selves and take my advice. And we got kids great internships, we got them great jobs, gave them a path, and they kept doing the things that they learned as undergrads because I felt like I'm Johnny Appleseed. I'm planting these seeds. The profession's going to benefit. So I don't come at this lightly. And you and I, another case study, we didn't try to bite off the whole state of North Carolina at one time. We grew incrementally and we kept growing and kept growing. And it was like a land grab. We kept taking more land, and success begot more success, begot more success. And next thing we know, EY Entrepreneur of the Year, which is like the Hall of Fame. I mean, where else can you go? So we've done it, we've proved it out. And now, I mean, they're just, what I like is it's all based on authenticity. It's all based on empathy, being a compassionate leader, being true to yourself, being true to your community. These are the foundations. And that's why the first step in a thought leadership program is self-awareness. And then you build from there.
I appreciate all the things you described, Bob. And from my experience, one of the things of working with you closely is somebody with enough experience to help shape the best version of you for public consumption, because you don't know how to do that typically on your own. At least I didn't. I will describe that, right? But somebody like yourself that got to know me, my strengths, my weaknesses, my things that I could do well, you picked a handful of things that we could then tweak, but I could see success immediately. And so I'll give an example of my entree into podcasting several years ago, before it was even as hot as it is now. I saw it as a way to start to get my authentic voice out. Didn't mean I was doing it good. It meant I was trying really hard, right? But what I will tell you is I wanted to serve on more corporate boards. And one of the boards that I was offered an opportunity was a $2 billion healthcare system. The CEO of that organization listened to my podcast. And then after listening to my podcast, I got into the formal interview process. My point being is an earlier thing, Bob, you said about 10 minutes ago, is you want to shape the narrative about you, because there's so much information out there. You want to be super deliberate about what people know and trust and hear about you. And so if you're not putting out content, if you're not shaping the narrative, if you're not part of the conversation, then you're at the whim of your competitors, or worse, you're at the whim of being irrelevant in a space where you should be dominating. And I think that is the thing that started to really get me, is like, this is another field of competition in the business space, not for who can be the most egotistical, but who can be the most informational, such that people that want to do business with you, you give them the reasons why they should. And I think that's an important thing that I learned that got me more excited about doing more types of talks like this, doing my research, my homework, and really now being not only an advocate, but something that's really affected me in a positive way for growing the firms that I'm a part of. Here's a question, Bob, as we get tactical a bit. Where should a leader start? Let's get granular. You're working with a new C-suite leader, because not always a CEO, could be emerging talent, up and comer, a young entrepreneur. How would you start as an intake, having them think about their thought leadership, and what tools and where would they start? And just what would you do on that first 30-minute call with a prospective entrepreneur or executive that wants to really take advantage of thought leadership?
In a best case scenario, that first 30-minute call, I'm going to say, how serious are you about this? Are you serious enough to write down your thoughts for the next 2 weeks? When I'm not talking to you, when nobody else is talking to you, are you willing to shut down the phone, the laptop, and actually spend 15 minutes, half hour thinking about what it is that you want? any executive is going to be goal driven. So I need to know from a thought leadership perspective, where do you see yourself? And those are some of the earliest conversations you and I had. We had that conversation the first time we met. I asked you point blank, where do you see yourself? Because in our first conversation, I got the vibe that we were going to engage in an honest conversation. It wasn't going to be guarded. And that's tough for a lot of people because we're taught to keep our guards up, especially as executives, because we never know. Somebody's going to leak something, somebody's going to say something, it's going to hurt us. But can't go into a thought leadership conversation like that. You have to have goals, they have to be attainable. If you would have said to me, well, I expect to have my own show on CNN within 3 years, I'd have been like, well, I am not your guy because I can't help you get there. You know, that's not going to happen. Now, can we reach toward national prominence? Heck yeah, we can do that. It's not going to be overnight. And you've told the story and I've told the story. I was kind of nervous the first time I took a full PR plan to you because I knew how you had treated PR people in the past. And so,
and my global apologies to the PR nation. But continue.
Exactly. So I said, look, you and I were tight enough at that point. I said, look, you're going to have to trust me. It's going to take some time. And we were at a point where we had gained each other's trust enough that you said, yeah, okay, I understand. And that has to be part of the conversation. Your PR person, your communicator, your thought leader can be your best pal because if you need somebody to give it to you straight, make that part of it and they'll give it to you straight. If you need somebody to kind of help you see a vision, they can help there. We call it boundary spanning. That's kind of the technical name in PR. It's being able to look out and envision what the future holds, look for crises on the path. Well, you can do that for yourself. You can have somebody help you out who has that skill and create the program that's authentic because it's driven by your goals and aspirations that are meaningful, attainable, and will give you the kind of win rate that you're ready to build to wherever you want to go.
No, that is really powerful. And one of our earlier conversations, and I don't remember the exact words, but here's the paraphrase. If we're going to be successful at this, we need to provide value through each piece of content that addresses real pain points so that people come back for more. And I remember that, right? Because sometimes people think thought leadership is how much you post. It's what platform. And all of those are tactics within a social media plan and a promotion plan. But the fundamental that I learned from you and I wrote down and I remember to this day is we've got to deliver value to people that helps them solve problems they have or take advantage of opportunities that they have so that they want to come back and learn more. And that was really important to me because I didn't want to just be throwing stuff out there, right? That was different than me. I wanted to share things with people that would make them better tomorrow, that would make them better their next meeting, right? Because that was the way I learned. And that was the cups of coffee that people shared with me. And I wanted to be able to provide that cup of coffee to people that I hadn't met, but still could use the opportunity to grow and learn. And the other thing that we've seen by the numbers in my social media presence and brand is people love hearing stories about things you messed up. Like if you have enough self-confidence, like people love to hear, because we all put out this persona and different things, and that's good, right? But man, if people understand your spectacular failures, it shares the courage and confidence that they can overcome theirs also. And I think that's an important part of authentic communication, but also humility, right? And how do we want to do that? And that's one of the things that I valued, right? In terms of the way you brought me through a process and continue to learn and grow. What would you say, Bob, is some of the bigger mistakes people make when they're thinking about thought leadership? What are some of the things some of the gotchas you see people go, ugh, that doesn't land well. Why'd they do that?
I'll tell you, one of the things I see all the time is, marketers tell people, what's your CTA? Like everything's got to have a CTA. Come on, life's not like that. Stories don't have to have a CTA. The CTA maybe is like something like, yeah, it made me laugh. Or I got 5 seconds enjoyment out of that because I had, I was able to surf LinkedIn on my lunch break just to take a break from my horrific day. It doesn't have to be a CTA to everything. You could just tell stories. People dig that. It's the reason why the kids and so many more young adults love TikTok. It's
Mm,
just entertainment. It's just flat out short entertainment. Now, I also don't, there's another mistake. I don't think every message needs to be short. I think that there is real value in long form content. And I think every statistic will pretty much show you that, except when people buy into, well, only vertical video that's blah, blah, blah will play out on, because LinkedIn's changed their algorithm. Like, come on. Good content, it's like cream rises to the top. So people will read or watch or do something that's long form if it's quality content. I know you're a Game of Thrones fan and you've watched it over and over again. That's a lot of hours. I'm a Mad Men fan, 92 hours. I've watched that whole show straight through 4.5 times. That's a lot of hours of my life. I've read The Great Gatsby 147 times. How many hours of my life? Because it's great content. I didn't need a 30-minute overview or not 30-minute, 30-second overview of any of those things. People commit all the time to long form. A football game takes a long time as opposed to what people tell you. So some of the common perceptions are actually misperceptions. Create some long form content, test it, see what happens, mix it up. Doesn't have to have a CTA. There isn't always a sell. You don't have to sell. Your authentic self isn't selling to, people that you meet at a cocktail party. Nobody wants to be sold all the time. Be
I
authentic.
I think you're not only right, but you're on trend with the new economy. There's so much information available, right? You almost create immediate distrust trying to sell somebody something. What they want to understand is what was the impact of using product or service positive for you? What is the benefit others have had by using your services, your expertise, your product, your brand? How you are helpful, I think, is what you want to communicate. And then people will determine their readiness to buy. And people do their research. And another thing that I would say in one of my firms, I'm super blessed. I stay busy, but I'm the board chair of a marketing organization called Walk West. And so we were looking to hire very senior content specialists to help us with building thought leadership brands for executives. And so we had about 150 resumes for this role, 10 to 15 folks that we had for the one-on-one interviews and face-to-face or virtual. And then we ended up selecting a candidate. And so as we're talking to the final candidate, I always ask, what about our firm or us, makes you choose? Because you're doing well, a lot of talent, different things. Why choose us? Well, I really want the opportunity to work with someone that's innovative like you are. And this was a compliment to me. In doing my research, in listening to your podcast, in reading your book, I want to work with someone that's entrepreneurial, even within a corporate context. And so when you're in that war for talent, people don't choose to work for a company based just on the corporate brand. That's part of it, right? That's part of it. Compensation, that's part of it. But in today's economy, people want to work with people that they're going to learn from and that they're inspired by. And so you've got to figure out how to be that type of person, even if you have an introverted personality, even if you're more humble. To your earlier point, Bob, people don't have to make it all about them in thought leadership. They can make it about the team they're building. They can make it about the amazing clients they get to serve. And they can make it about lessons that they've learned. And they can use whatever style they have, but they have to get into the thought leadership arena. I don't think you can sit on the sidelines and, oh man, if you're trying to sell your company and you don't have a thought leadership plan for you and your executive team, you're costing yourself millions of dollars in value. Listen to me, period. Why? Because folks in the money game want to be in business with stars. They want to be in business with perceived winners, people that have been there, done that, industry experts. So when somebody's looking at your business, they're looking at your people, your product, your profitability. right? If you have profitability, you're going to be able to sell your business. Like, fantastic. If you have great people, even if you're not as profitable, that company is going to look at your business and say, we can get you profitable. They got great people. But if all of a sudden you've got profit, you've got great people, right? All of a sudden you put these things together and then you have a persona, an image. Now all of a sudden you're raising your valuation because now you've got more to work with from that acquiring firm. And I think most people are sleeping on that, like big and small companies. I just think they're sleeping on it. And it's super helpful in any transactions I've been a part of, right? In terms of what you do. Now, again, I'm not the end all be all. I've done a few deals, done a few things, but I'll tell you, it didn't hurt me.
The interesting thing that I think is a corollary to this is that I am thoroughly convinced that leaders who have focused on thought leadership actually find other benefits along the path.
Mm.
It actually makes them better leaders because they are forcing themselves into a situation where they're frequently thinking about the world around them, how their messages are shaped, and how the audience is going to respond in a way that sometimes can get lost in our day to day work. So if I'm building out a thought leadership program or I'm in the middle of it, I have to be really cognizant of everything or I can't do it well. And in building that 360-degree view, I'm going to get better at certain things. I'm going to be a more thoughtful leader. I'm going to be a more thoughtful individual. I'm going to understand my stakeholders better because I'm thinking more actively about them. It's the easiest thing in the world is to fill up your day with a lot of fluff and noise. And we all experience that because we live in this economy in which lots and lots of things are happening all the time. If you ask anybody how busy you are, they'll go, "Oh my God, I'm so busy." You never, in the last 20 years, you never talked to a single person who said, "Oh no, things are good. I take on a little more work. No problem." Never going to happen. Never. What's happened in those 20 years? The internet. It's the great suck of knowledge, of time, of effort, of direction, of impact. It's all sucked away. Any free time we ever had, it's gone because you could just sit there and scroll forever. Starting to notice the things around you, like I'm not Thoreau or something. I'm not saying go out and live by live in a pond or something to get back in touch with nature, but there is value in thinking deeply about what it is that you offer the world, and then thinking also what does the world expect from me or offer back. There's a relationship there, and so yeah, I clearly I think a lot about this, and I believe deeply in it.
One of the things, as the diversity movement was acquired by Workplace Options, which is our new company that we're a part of, and our audience, and you can look up Bob's background, but Bob is head of our global marketing, right? So anything that touches the WPO brand and its infrastructure is all Bob Batchelor. And one of the things that our CEO, Alan, was excited about is looking at the TDM team and how could he leverage the whole team for the bigger entity. And Bob was one of those critical points of that thought process. Within WPO, Bob, you and your team created a psychological safety study. And so, what I want you to do is talk about that study, but also the thought process. We talked more thought leadership, individual executive. I want you to now zoom us out, right, to how does a corporation create thought leadership in their space. And so I'd love for you to take some time and talk about the psychological safety study, how it came about, what its business value, what you've been doing with it, because I think that is spot on for folks in marketing and comms departments that are not just looking for the executive branding, but the thought process of branding for the enterprise.
Yeah, thanks, Don. That's it's a great case study, and I am very lucky to have a great team. Clearly, none of us do it on our own. My team is fantastic, and it's 25 people all over the world. So I really enjoy working with them. So WPO has 83 million lives, and I think it's up to 85 million lives now under care. So we have amazing analytics. We have great data. And what most organizations do, and I'm not going to name names because we know all the biggies in the space. What most organizations do is they survey a set number of people. They survey people, they get a set number of answers. Those answers are quote unquote then become scientific when you hit a certain level of responses versus surveys that you've sent out. So the difference with our psychological study is that we drew the information from our actual clinical engagement, our clinicians with real people in the world, when they would call in and say, I'm having a problem at work. I'm having this problem. We take in that data. Of course, we help those people, but you don't want to just sit on that data. We have all this great information. So, our chief knowledge officer and his team, and some people from the consulting arena, they looked at all this information and knew that it told a great story about what WPO has to offer the world. And when I joined WPO through the TDM acquisition, one of my first tasks was to think about how do we get this out into the world. And so I looked at 9 countries, and I don't have the list in front of me, but listeners can just Google workplace options, psychological safety study. It'll come right up. 9 countries, and what are the drivers of their workplace concerns? And what we saw in those 9 countries, there were certainly some overlaps. Some places had the same kind of, their number 2 workplace challenge was the same in both locations. But what we found is some really interesting information. Like in one country, there was challenge with your boss or manager is the number 1 concern, where somewhere else, not having a recognition program was their number 1 thing. So if we take as a baseline that everybody in the world is stressed out and on the verge of burnout, which we all feel, again, because of the internet and how hard we work, you take that away and say, okay, let's go a level deeper. What we uncovered in the psychological safety study is those other reasons. So if you're a multinational company and you're operating in 3 of those 9 countries, you can grab the insight to understand, okay, in France, my employees need an employee recognition program. But in the US, it's workplace concerns, and that might be stress, it might be family and child relationships, it might be something else. But you can't assume that everybody's the same. And nobody really has the data because surveys are just opinions. It's in the moment. When I'm asked to answer a survey, it's asking me, in this moment of your life and your career, how do you feel? It's not, there's no contextualization, but these are actual conversations with clinicians. So we were able to generate this whole program. And what it did over the course of the next several months was allow us to bring to life something that the diversity movement team had created, which was called the employee engagement model. And so you look at the top of the scale is what organizations want is their employees to be engaged, because we know by every measure that most employees are not fully engaged, and it has a significant economic impact on their work. And it has a significant impact on those people who are engaged because they have to carry more of the load. So when we tied our data to this new model, we understood that if we talk about psychological safety and inclusive leadership, which are 2 strong points of both of these new teams, the WPO team and the TDM team, if we make our corporate message about psychological safety, and then it's also its brethren, psychosocial risk, and then add inclusive leadership to that, if we can help companies in those 3 areas, that's gold. And so the psychological safety study allowed us to tie this overarching corporate message to the real world in a way that people could understand. We didn't have to explain. A lot of people, they don't have time. They think they're too busy to understand a model. They don't want to go through billions of data points to understand why their employees are upset. Well, we're giving it to you all, and we're giving it to you for free. So if we're smart enough to figure all this out for free, maybe the next time you have a really complex challenge, you should give WPO a call, because we're clearly very intelligent and very thoughtful about the way we look at problems. And so next year, we're not waiting until April to release the psychological safety study. The second psychological safety study will be out in February. Why? Because as a storyteller, I want more time to tell that story. I want the world to have that information. We've identified this as something that we're willing to hang our hats on. This is the essence of workplace options. It's the way that we're going to show the world that we are thought leaders in holistic well-being. And so I'm super excited about it. My team's energized by it. Our leadership team is energized by it. And it really brings out all the strengths of not only what a traditional employee assistance program is, but all the other things that WPO does so well, like products and services that are outside the traditional EAP model. So we have all these great things happening, and it's all authentic because it's built on what is most important at WPO is the human to human connection. It's not the human to human fill out a survey. It's not the human to computer fill out a survey online. It's actual talking, human to human, on phones, on screens, actual humans talking. And so Alan King, our CEO, asks a very simple question: are we helping people? Psychological safety study shows that we not only know how to help people, but we know how to help their organizations address the points that they need most to make them more engaged in the workplace. And in the end, a more engaged workforce is a happier workforce, which is a better outcome for everybody.
We'll put in the show notes the link to the WPO study. But I want to circle us back to some earlier comments that Bob made in our relationship. And then as we talked, that he just illustrated, right? Is providing value through content that addresses real pain in your industry. So now when executives hear about the study, they can look at the study, map against the countries they're doing business in, and now they can immediately go to, so what should I do about this? If I have employees that are stressed or have more management conflict, how do I access people leader training? If I do have organizations that are feeling more stressed than is desirable in a given thing, how do I use tools to reduce that workplace stress and improve workplace effectiveness? And so what Bob illustrated just in that storytelling, both how the study was built, how it's being launched, how we're going to continue to build on that information, that is a thought leadership example within a $150 million organization. But it also speaks to me as a business development leader, as a CEO that's driving revenue, of I can build credibility with my clients and contacts by giving them something they can use. And by giving them information they can use, I build trust. And then once you're trusted, when people have a problem, they'll ask your opinion about it. When I wanted to write a book, I talked to people I trusted, and several people said, you need to get on the calendar of Bob Batchelor if you can. I reached out to you. We spent 30, 40 minutes. And we then, when I was ready to actually do it, right, not just talk about it, I said, Bob, will you help me? And we partnered on building something together. That's at an individual level. What Bob, you just talked about is at a corporate level. But the fundamentals are the same. The thought leadership game is about sharing information for free that will then make you a contender for jobs for fee. But you got to put out really good content that people can use at first. You can't just throw it together. It's got to be meaningful, data driven, highly researched, and actionable insights. And those are the kind of things that make a corporate thought leadership program. You may not be the next McKinsey or Accenture right now, but brick by brick, you can be in your industry, in your space, in the pond that you and your team strategically want to sell into. And I think it's ignored at people's peril. When I talk to people about thought leadership now and they don't get it, I don't care, because I'm going to beat you in the marketplace. I hope you don't. Literally, it's like my competitors in different businesses, like, I hope you don't get it. But then, Bob, to your point of me apologizing to PR folks in the past, I did laugh several agencies and leaders out of my office 15 years ago when they were talking to me about thought leadership. And now I'm the biggest advocate on the planet. So it also goes that we can change, that people can learn and grow and do better. Bob, as always, I could talk to you literally forever. So I'm going to give you the last word. So I'm going to open it up for any thoughts that maybe I didn't guide us to in the conversation that you'd like to share. Just what closing comments would you have for our audience about thought leadership, executive branding, and why they need to move forward and be more intentional in that space?
Yeah, and for me, Don, thank you for that, and thank you for the opportunity to discuss this. I told you I'm an advocate going way back, and I agree, and I'm going to use your at your own peril. I'm going to use that from now on. So you'll hear me saying that. Oh man, he stole that from me. But we have a habit of doing that. Don and I, for listeners that sometimes we finish each other's sentences, which kind of freaks our wives out, but that's okay. We've spent a lot of time together over the last handful of years. I think we've hit the high points. The main thing that I would leave somebody with is don't leave it to somebody else to define who you are or who your organization is. At no point in my discussion about the psychological safety study did Alan King come to me and say, I want this to be about me. Because it's not about him. This is about an ideology. Now, did he set the tone for the ideology? Yes, he did. Human to human connection. That's what sets workplace options apart. We thrive on people talking to people. And that's the whole clinical ballgame. The psychological safety study was a way for us to demonstrate that in the real world. And so it does not have to be you thumping your chest. And that's what people think. They've seen too many celebrities and too many publicists pushy, trying to CTAs and just pushy. And we don't like that as humans. We don't like that pushy. So give it to me, let me time to slide into this. I'll tell you a quick story. I worked for one of the largest companies in the world, and they had a real leadership problem because they had a consumer products division that drove 2/3 of their revenue. But none of the actual workers liked the leadership. They all saw them as militaristic, saw them as robots, saw them as unconcerned, lacked empathy. So when they came to me and said, "What do we do?" I said, "Well, these people, they are actually human beings, right? They have hobbies. Here's the simple thing we did. We put out a newsletter that talked about each of the divisional presidents or CEOs and talked about their hobbies. And I remember distinctly one guy who people thought was just like a cardboard mean person. He actually was a scuba diver. And this was 20 years ago. Like scuba diving was like more like you couldn't just do it. Like people didn't, it was more of a thing. And he had these pictures and he gave me the pictures of him scuba diving. I put them in the newsletter. Now, this was not rocket science. I'm not some kind of genius. I just understand the power of narrative. And if somebody thinks that you're mean, show them you're not mean. Very simple. And I'll tell you even what I did even more. The CEO was routinely on the list of the most powerful women in business. Fortune magazine, every year, cover. But internally, people were scared of her and that had bad ramifications for the company. People they feared her. So I had an idea one day. This was back when everybody had phones on their desks. You could leave a company voicemail. Like this was the height of technology. You could leave a company voicemail. So I wrote a company voicemail for her. Took her about 10 tries to get it right, which is fine. Everybody's not comfortable. She left a happy holidays. We did it in multiple languages. We included phrases so that people wouldn't feel left out. This was long before anybody cared about belonging and all those things. She read it off, and it was a huge success. People were coming up to her in the corporate elevator telling her, "Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. I was having a bad day. I got your voicemail. I'm feeling so much better, blah, blah, blah. At the holidays, everybody's happy. Show somebody that you have a heart. You're not a robot. Little things like that. Even though the technology is still advanced, storytelling isn't. You can still be narrative driven. And people dig that.
Bob, I appreciate that very much, those last several stories. And the thing that I wrote down is storytelling is evergreen. It doesn't go out of style, right? Storytelling is always on trend. What we're actually discussing so much in our business world are distribution systems of the stories. But storytelling is always on trend. And that is really great. Well, man, thanks for spending some time. I know we plan to do this more and more because we just learn from each other, and now we're just sharing that learning and that fun with other people, and that's why it's so easy and fun to do. But Bob, always enjoy it. Appreciate you having it, and our audience, I'll tell you, as we continue to do these, number one, please give us feedback on LinkedIn, different things, topics you want us to crush. But anytime you get to spend time with Bob Batchelor, there's learning to be done. And so I appreciate it, my friend.
Thanks, Don. Yep, love it. We'll talk again soon. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you for joining us on High Octane Leadership with Donald Thompson. Today's episode is a step in our collective journey towards leadership excellence. Remember, every story we share and every insight we gain is a piece in the puzzle of our leadership journey. For more insight and detail, hit the subscribe button so that we can stay connected. For deeper information and more episodes, go to donaldthompson.com. Continue to lead with vision and purpose, and until we meet again, embrace your role as a high-octane leader in the ever-evolving world of business.